This is the Medion Akoya E6239. Yes, that's its full name. This terrible laptop was released in 2014 and was originally sold with Windows 8.1, sporting an Intel Celeron N2840, a terrible 500 GB hard drive, just 4 gigs of single channel RAM, Intel HD graphics that are barely HD, a absolutely horrendous TN panel that has the worst backlighting I've probably ever seen on a laptop, with the classic 1366 by 768 resolution, and an absolutely horrendous keyboard. Yeah, I hope that speaks for itself. So yeah, this laptop is pretty terrible. Even with a 120 GB fast SSD and 16 GB of dual channel RAM. Yes, this thing can take up to 16, which is kind of funny. Because you'd think, the limit for the CPU or for the motherboard would be 8. No, it's 16. Yet it still runs like absolute crap on Windows 10 LTSC with animations disabled and even revision thrown on top of it. Shout out revision. It's still terrible. But a certain option in the BIOS of this laptop made me wonder, how would this thing run Windows 7? Because, when this laptop came out, it wasn't any good, and in 2025, it isn't any good either. This would have ran terribly on Windows 8.1. But since, according to the BIOS, Windows 7 is officially supported, just how does this run on Windows 7? Does everything just work on there? Do all the drivers work and, all that? Does the integrated graphics even work on there? Because, those can be iffy. How's the overall experience compared to Windows 10 LTSC, especially since we're using an SSD and 16 gigs of RAM? And does it run Windows 7 era games? Let's find out. This will probably be the most modern laptop I've ever run Windows 7 on, which is going to be fun. I've also put Ubuntu on a secondary partition on this SSD, which also did not run well at all. Whoa, what the heck is going on up there? Hopefully it still boots. If it doesn't, I'll have to do this in legacy mode rather than UEFI. I don't have experience running Windows 7 on a UEFI system. So, a few minutes later, we're at the Windows installer. I've reflashed the ISO in MBR, so we are doing this in legacy now, no UEFI. And I've also changed the SSD because this is the SSD that was in there. There's a crappy 120 gig Kingston, and I did not feel like wiping my Windows 10 install, and I already wiped Ubuntu on it because, well, Linux is useless. So, here we go. Install now. Yes, I accept the license terms. Oh, this touchpad is so terrible. I didn't mention that, huh? Come on. Do it. So we got 2 partitions on this one as well, with data. Oh, I think this was used for a school project. We'll wipe it. Alright, a fresh 190.2 gigabyte partition, and we are going to install Windows 7 on there. Hopefully this will go just fine, fingers crossed. I am really curious about the driver situation on this machine when it comes to Windows 7. This is going surprisingly slow for a SATA 6 interface with USB 3 and an SSD, but oh well, I guess what can you expect from a Celeron N2840? Which was also released in 2014, by the way. It's a 2-core, 2-thread processor, so no hyperthreading here, with a 2.16 GHz base clock and a 2.58 GHz boost clock, which at 7 watts, by the way, 7 watts on the Bay Trail architecture, which sounds alright compared to, older Core 2 Duos and stuff, but in reality, with its only 1 megabyte of cache, it's pretty awful. It's very, very awful. It's super slow on Windows 10, almost to the point where it's unbearable. Like, with a hard drive, it's absolutely unbearable. With an SSD, maybe you'll be able to get by if you get used to it and use no other computers, but yeah. Yeah, just give me a Core 2 Duo compared to this. That has a reason to be terrible. This doesn't. Or the right, I should say. Alright, so we're on the desktop of Windows 7 here. I actually started gaming for a bit because, yeah, this was pretty interesting. The installation process was really slow. Like, this took like a good 15 minutes or so. Like, I've done faster Windows 7 installs than this. Like, if you're searching for a proper Windows 7 laptop, just get, I strongly recommend Intel first gen, like an i5 56TM or something, and with a decent NVIDIA or AMD GPU from that time. Not this type of thing. My first laptop had a Core 2 Duo P8400, which is actually 40% better than this fucking Celeron, and I still have a P8600 laying around. That goes to show how terrible this thing is. And look, it's even doing things right now, and it was also doing that when it just booted up. Also, the RAM usage is really high because we have 16 gigabytes. But yeah, overall the installation process was a mixed experience. The second phase where you need to put in all the data and stuff like, user account and shit like that. That all went super quick because of the SSD. But the initial install process with copying files and shit, that took a good while. So that's kind of, I don't know, I thought that was kind of interesting, the difference between the two phases. Anyways, for now, I'm gonna try to get a whole bunch of drivers for this thing because it's missing a lot. There's no graphics acceleration. There's no graphics acceleration. For some reason, it says that there's USB 2.0 CRW driver, but we ran this off of USB 3 all the time. That's kind of funny. And I'm also stuck because there's no Ethernet. Apparently, there's not even Ethernet. So I'll have to get my drivers. Yeah. I'll probably have to grab the Wi-Fi driver off of the internet and then install drivers via Driver Booster and maybe from the Intel website for the iGPU if I can find that. So yeah, great. It's gonna take a lot of time. Well, I am back and it's been a whole 13 days since the last recording. The usual thing happened where I got busy, got lazy, and just forgot to record and do stuff. So yeah. But don't worry, I am back. I installed a whole bunch of games. I did a whole bunch of tests on this laptop, and I'll talk you through the experience of it. So, how has this laptop been in Windows 7? Well, I'm surprised to tell you that it's been really good. I had no issues with drivers apart from one, which I'll get to. Arrow works just fine. 3D acceleration works just fine with one asterisk, which you'll see in games. It's not perfect, but it's miles ahead of what Ubuntu was like and Windows 10 LTSC with, Revision OS thrown on top of it, services disabled, so many things to make it as light as possible. It would still run like crap. This is so much better. This has really turned it into a funny laptop to mess around with because it's really just kind of too new for this, I'd say, but it's also just too awful to run Windows 8, and maybe 8 it would do, but 8.1 would just struggle, especially with the hard drive and the 4 gigs of RAM that it would originally come with in single channel. So if they would have just thrown this on it right out of the factory, then yeah, customers would have been way more happy with this laptop. I can reassure you that. This is way more fun. Now it remains a terrible Celeron laptop, and you'll see that soon. But I've installed the latest updates of Legacy Update. I've installed all the drivers I could. Apart from this weird unknown device, which I just cannot identify. As for the iGPU, I just installed the same drivers that were compatible with Windows 10. The latest drivers for this are from 2020 from the official Intel website, and they also support Windows 7. So thumbs up to that, Intel. You are a real baller. But yeah, Arrow runs just fine, which is also really fun to see. Let's just do a quick Supermium launch. See, that's not too bad. I did a YouTube test on this, and it does run 720p YouTube, and it also does 720p 60. If you leave it sit there and not move your mouse around the interface. But 1080p just won't do, and it kind of doesn't have to because it's a 768p panel anyways. But how does this laptop run games, you ask? Well, we are going to find out. I installed Crysis, Far Cry, Half-Life 2, Just Cause, and Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, why these games? Well, they just seemed like popular games from back in the day that would run okay on this laptop. A few of them sadly don't, but you will see that in a bit. It's sure interesting to find out if this laptop is any good for retro gaming, because there are so many of these older Celeron laptops out there. And I guess now is the time we're going to find out if it's any good for, well, not really retro gaming, but just older games on Windows 7. So let's start with Far Cry. So we're at the menu. GPU is, at 100%, but we're getting 105 FPS in the menu, which is a good thing. As for graphical options, we are doing this in full resolution, but on low. The iGPU should be more than capable. Jesus Christ. The iGPU should be more than capable to do this, and it is, but it has some glitches, and I'll show you. And that's why it's running on low. It should be able to do a lot better, and it can do better, but because of all the glitches going on, you just cannot play this game properly. Everything is set to lowest. Just full resolution. Yeah, that's not how the water is supposed to look, huh? So it runs fine. It's just that water physics are absolutely awful on this, and yeah, this is not the ideal Far Cry 1 experience, is it? The graphics should not look this way. Everything just doesn't look the way it should. Trust me, I've played this on numerous graphics cards, and this is not the way it should look. So yeah, but we are pulling 92 FPS, sometimes 100, but this is just not how it should look. So yeah, Far Cry on this is a big no. You can just not play this at all, and there's just too much glitching going on, because yeah, I don't even know how to progress further if I have to be honest. Things don't look right. So yeah, that sucks. But can it run Crysis? Play to win with Core 2 Extreme? Yeah, sadly we don't have that in there. Alright, so Crysis might actually surprise some of you. It certainly did surprise me with its performance, but don't expect too much. So we are running this at 1024 by 768 with, well, VSync on for some reason, but no anti-aliasing. With everything set to low except for the shader set to high. I don't know why that is. I'm probably just gonna throw that on medium. Yes. Man, this touchpad on this laptop is making me rage quit. But yeah, everything is set to low apart from that. And we're just gonna give it a try. I've already played this just a little bit just to see how it would do. Alright, so the fan has gone full speed all of a sudden, and I cannot get MSI Afterburn to show up. So we're using Fraps. We're pulling around 30 frames per second. Oh, what is it doing? Now we're doing a whole 1 frame per second. Okay. I'm gonna have to reload this. Huh, so I think it was actually overheating, because the fan slowed down, and now we are back at 38 frames per second. I tried opening Task Manager, and I just... Okay, so that is interesting. Weird, because this uses a thermal pad between the CPU and the tiny heatsink. If it would be overheating, I would have already repasted it. I knew nothing about this. But yeah, we're pulling 30 frames per second in 1024 by 768. Granted, everything is at lowest, but I'd say that's actually better than I expected. I ran this on a 560 Ti and a 2700K, and this game was even able to make that struggle. But yeah, this is all right. I mean, it does dip very heavily when you start shooting and stuff. There are no water glitches here this time, which is nice to see. But yeah, other than that, you could play Crysis on this if you wanted to. And if you wanted more FPS, you'd probably have to really play in like, what, 640 by 480, 800 by 600. I think 1024 by 768 is a minimum acceptable resolution for a game like this. But it really depends on what you think is best. And now the fan is full speed again. I really have no idea what the temperature is, but this is interesting. I've never seen this before on this laptop. It's probably gonna need a repaste. Oh well. Crysis, does it run Crysis? Yes, it does run Crysis. The internet's big question is answered with a yes on this absolutely horrific laptop. and then it dips again because I think it's literally overheating. When we're shooting, it does start dipping into the 20s though, and into the high 10s. Yeah. Crysis is not great, but if you wanted to, you could play it on here. So next up is the legendary Half-Life 2. I've also installed HW info with the CPU temperature sensor monitoring now, so that we can see if this is actually overheating, because I had no idea. Alright, so for Half-Life, the resolution is 1280 by 720, with everything set to low, with a little bit of anisotropic filtering, VSync on, simple reflections, everything else is just basic and low. DirectX 9. So yeah, let's load it up and see how it does. Speakers on this are great. MSI Afterburner works this time, and this runs fine. Well, mostly. There's a caveat here. When you look in certain directions, it limits itself to 30 FPS, despite that the iGPU and the CPU are both not maxed out. Like for example in this area, and then I go a little bit further, and then it goes up to 60 FPS. So can this play Half-Life in 720p? Yes, it can. So I guess it does sort of live up to its Intel HD graphics name, because it can play this in HD. But for some reason, this game limits itself to 30 FPS sometimes, and I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a driver thing, maybe it's a game thing, I'm not sure. But it's not maxing out the iGPU pretty much always, I say. So yeah, it can definitely run Half-Life 2, which is good to see, because that's a very popular older game. So let's move on. So let's get to the most fun game, in my opinion, Just Cause. I went to a friend the other day and I played this game on this laptop for 2 hours straight. This thing got 84 degrees Celsius while doing so, but this does run Just Cause. Not well, but it does run Just Cause. I'll just tell you that already. It was a huge fun time. I'm already at the Devil's Drop Zone, so we won't have to do a whole tutorial. So these are the settings for Just Cause 1024 by 768. It doesn't allow me to go higher than this. Everything is set to low though, because yeah, this runs at 30 FPS all the time. You can't play this, of course. I played this for a couple hours. It's not that great, especially when it dips below 30 FPS, but most of the time this does run at 30 FPS, so it is acceptable. The iGPU is the main bottleneck here. The CPU can give a little bit more. But yeah, the game doesn't look too bad. I will say that it's very well optimized. See, sometimes it does hit 45 FPS when you're in, very light areas like this, when you're just climbing a hill. But in, more hectic areas like, with the police and shootings and stuff, this can dip all the way to like 18 FPS. So yeah, it's not great, but you can play Just Cause on this, Just Cause 1, if you want to. And it's not the worst experience ever, I'd say. It's bad, but if this is all you had, I'd be satisfied. Our last game is Star Wars Battlefront 2. Alright, so at 1024 by 768 with everything set to low, I thought this laptop would be able to do better, but it can't. We are averaging around 30 FPS. It's not that great. I honestly expected better for a game from 2005, 9 year older than this laptop. So yeah, I would have expected more because this game is literally 9 years older than this laptop. But oh well. Oh god, that was awful. So yeah, this is not great. I don't want to go even lower on resolution than this. I think this laptop should be able to do this, but it can't. This is not great. I'd say don't play it like this, or go even lower on resolution if it's all you got. So yeah, Star Wars Battlefront 2 from 2005 is not great. Any laptop did not overheat with a max of 77 degrees on the CPU and 75 on the iGPU. So I don't know what was going on in the beginning of the video, but it does make for a funny blooper. So should you use one of these laptops for retro gaming? I'd say no, but if it's all you got, I guess you can get by with it. It is, of course, fun to play those older games. Some of them are not fully compatible because of that issue that I had with Far Cry. So you won't be able to play Far Cry on this. You will be able to play Crysis on this, surprisingly. Half-Life 2, you can play this, even newer versions of it. It's more than enough for that. It just has that weird 30 FPS thing going on. For general tasks on Windows 7, this is also doable, I'd suppose, but yeah, again, not great. I'd really recommend a first gen laptop with a decent GPU for Windows 7 gaming, or maybe even a newer Penrine based Core 2 Duo, or maybe even slightly older than that Core 2 Duo laptop over this, and those are, widely available. Those get thrown away all the time. So, to kind of pull a conclusion, this laptop is pretty good on Windows 7. It's a huge improvement over Windows 10 and also Ubuntu. In terms of just general basic tasks, it gets the job done. It's slow still, of course, but it does get the job done. As for gaming, I cannot recommend this for retro gaming. It's just not great. If it's all you got, then I'd say give it a try. But if you got anything else laying around, or you have any thrift store you can go to, or e-waste center, and save a laptop, then just do that, because almost anything will be better than this, especially with the absolutely awful display quality of this thing that was also really hard to record, and the absolutely atrocious keyboard. One of the few positives I'd say is the expandability. You can throw 16 gigs of RAM in here, which is ridiculous. The speakers are absolutely great. I will say that. The speakers are really good. They almost make you want to watch movies on this thing, but then you look at the display too long and you almost want to vomit. So yeah, that's kind of the conclusion on this Medion laptop. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. I'm really trying to improve my content. Leave a comment if you noticed anything weird or want me to improve. I'd really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching if you made it all the way until the end. And Merry Christmas, everyone.